I have tried countless times to keep track of my receipts and spending, and my desire usually would re-flare whenever I would look down at my bank account every once in a while and be like, okay, how do we get here again? And perhaps you've had similar thoughts or been in the same position as me, and yeah, it was really tough to be able to start building this habit of keeping track of it. But as you saw from that thumbnail of mine, I was able to do it. I kept track of every single receipt for the past year. Sure had an idea of where my spending was going, like we all do, but there's something about the black and white on those receipts that doesn't lie. It tells me exactly how much I spent and exactly where I was spending it. And that was the first thing that came from keeping track of my spending. I actually knew. And knowing where you stand is the first step in taking action with your finances. And this was a really sobering experience for me. When I first started keeping track of my spending, it was a time when I really liked to go out, and I also really liked to eat out. And there's already enough regret that was floating around with those decisions, and then just seeing how much I was spending on it just really added to it. And now you're probably logically thinking, all right, this guy kept track of all his receipts, all his spending, he probably started budgeting and got like right on track with his finances. And that wasn't necessarily the case for me. I was more concerned in knowing just how much I was spending and where it was going. So I would just put everything into categories in Excel, and then that's all I would do with it each month. And that was okay though with me, because I built this really good habit of keeping my receipts and getting them. I'm actually the guy who, when I go through the drive-through, I will check my order always after, and if there's no receipt there, I will wait for them to reopen that window and check in on me just to get it. So yeah, I'm receipt crazy. I acknowledge that, but I'm okay with it. Now, by keeping track of my spending, I can make a financial plan. And this wasn't something I had done at first. For the first few years, as I mentioned, I just kept track of my spending. And that was because I was just at home trying to figure stuff out. And as long as my bank account was at a certain amount, I was okay with where the rest of the money was going. But it was when I decided to return to college and that my situation was changing that, yeah, things really changed there. And I applied about 3 weeks before school started. So just getting back in there really quick, that was an experience. And it was the first week of class that a lot of my teachers actually asked us how many students were also working. And I think they did that just to gauge our commitment. But about 80% of my classmates all raised their hand, and I sat there and it got me thinking, all right, should I be working? And then I'm not working. Do I need to be working? Am I gonna make it through this school year with actually out working? And this was where my diligent receipt tracking really came into play, and it was the first time I made a budget. In a rough explanation, I had to take stock of where my starting situation was for that school year. So I had my savings. I was also going to be receiving some student loans, and then there was a little bit of money that my parents had saved for me to use while I was at school. So from there, I subtracted my tuition, my books, my parking, and commuting costs, and then because I've been keeping track of my spending so diligently, I had a bit of an idea of how much I was spending each month just to live, I guess you could say, or what my cost of living was each month. And I slashed that for sure because I wasn't working. I left my job going to school. I was like, okay. I looked at it and I was like, if I was making a bit more conscious decisions with my money, how much do I think I was spending each month? And I used that to forecast then the school year, and we were in a position where I had a bit of a buffer, and I had a peace of mind that I didn't need to work while at school. And that was really good. Returning to school is a really big thing for me, and just being in a position where I could focus on it and do my best was very important for me. So I did end up working a bit that school year though, just some odd jobs, and I'm glad I did because it was my first time budgeting, and there were some expenses that came up that year that I was not prepared for, I didn't account for, and working that extra bit and that buffer really was needed. And I finished the year with it being a lot smaller than we had originally predicted, but that was all part of the experience in learning how to budget. So that experience was very good for me. It's really helped me learn how to budget, and over the past 2 years I've been refining budgeting, and it's now just become a very good financial tool for me. Now my takeaway from that was understanding your financial situation is true financial freedom. Now we hear that statement all the time, I want to be financially free. Heck, I used to say it all the time growing up, and thought it was a desire of mine growing up too, that when I get older I want to be financially free. I want to be in a position where I just make decisions where I don't have to financially have any thought behind them. And now when I hear that statement and I think about it, I think it's just super vague blanket statement, and it's actually very naive. So you want to be financially free. Great. Yeah, exactly. What's that even mean? See, I can be aware of what my current financial situation is, and then I can be aware of what I want my future financial situation to be, and then I can make efforts towards it. Now, I'll use my example of me at school. See, I have a desired outcome I want to have at the end of my schooling, and that's for me to finish debt-free. I mentioned earlier that I wasn't working during my first year of school, and I also mentioned that I was taking on student loans, and I have been taking on student loans, and I can keep doing that, and I can finish my schooling, but I will have these when I get to the end of it. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of where my spending and my finances are right now, and I do not desire that outcome, and because of that, I plan to work for the remaining time of my years at school and to pay off that loan and to finish and pay off that loan. And that's what I mean by understanding your finances being a very freeing thing. I was in a position when I first started to know if I had to work or not, and I was able to get a really good grip and handle on my academics. And now I'm in the position where, because I'm balancing my time well, I have the opportunity to work while attending school and begin paying off that loan. So at the end of the day, I'm just a big believer that we should be good financial stewards in all seasons and situations of our life. Yeah, so keeping track of my receipts and spending has been a really good thing. I actually knew where I stood with my finances, and then as I shared, I was able to make like financial plans, and with those last thoughts, it's been like a very freeing thing for me. And this was years in the making. Oh my gosh, like just to finally get into the habit of keeping receipts and then making budgets. That's been a couple years now, so it's been a process. And share your thoughts. Let me know. Like, I'm really curious how that has gone for other people, because yeah, it's been an experience. All right, with that being said, thank you. Till next time.